Get the right job, I'll be happy. Get the right person, I'll be happy. Get a lot of money, win the lottery, I'll be happy. Get good health, I'll be happy. But realize what Eckhart said earlier, all that is thought. Okay, all that is thought. If I do this. So before the thought arises, you're already happy. And after the thought subsides, you're exactly where you started from. Before a thought arises, you were at peace. Then the thought arose, then you did everything to fulfill that outcome of that thought, which we call desire. And at the end, you are back where you started from. Just like before the wave arises, it's the ocean, and after the wave subsides, it's back into the ocean. So that makes it very obvious that happiness or joy is the starting point. It's also the ending point. You know, what's that poem, T.S. Eliot? We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from. At the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. So what Eckhart was saying is, instead of searching, just actually go back to where you started from. It's a journey without distance. And when you realize that it's a journey without distance, you turn the quality of your awareness to being present. Now, it's very interesting. We can say this many times, and you can hear this, and you can go out, and then you get distracted. You get distracted. And then something happens at some point where you realize that you don't need to be distracted. You can be the timeless being in the midst of time-bound activity. You can be the hub around which the whole universe arises and subsides. Because the whole universe, by the way, is nothing but sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts within consciousness. Okay, so there's a very important Mahavakya. Mahavakya means big idea, and it's still an idea till you experience it in Sanskrit. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham means I am, Brahmasmi, the universe. Because that's the only identity we have. We are the totality of the universe, the totality of the universe, as the continuum of space-time events now. But that space-time events, the continuum, is just a flux. It's coming and going, coming and going. You can't find consciousness by looking for it, because consciousness is the one that's looking. In my field, as a person who's trained in neuroscience, biology, endocrinology, today there's a lot of interest in consciousness as a brain phenomenon, because that's how we are trained. We think consciousness is a perceptual object, but where is the brain experience? When you think about the brain, where is that experience? In consciousness. When you look at a brain as a perceptual object, that's also in consciousness. So consciousness is prior to brain. Okay, even the experience of the brain is, the perceptual experience of the brain is a qualia. It's a quality of consciousness within consciousness. So coming back to what he was saying is, all this neuroscience that we're doing, which is fun, a lot of fun to do, it's very inferential, but we will never understand consciousness by looking at a brain or through neuroscience. Why? Because only consciousness can know consciousness. Only consciousness can understand consciousness. Only consciousness can experience consciousness. Any neuroscience validation of consciousness is inferential. It's not direct. Direct is the presence, this moment. So when I started, I said, as you're listening to me, turn your attention to who's listening. Or as you're looking at me, just turn your attention to the space between you and me. Presence is always there. Anytime you have any experience, you're either experiencing a sensation somewhere, or you're experiencing an image, or a feeling, emotion, or a thought. Now, Dan Siegel, who's a great friend of ours, is a neuropsychiatrist at UCLA. He says he uses an acronym, SIFT, S-I-F-T. Every experience that you have is either a sensation, or an image, or a feeling, or a thought. All of perceptual experience, all of cognitive experience, or any experience is actually just consciousness and its qualities. Okay, so right now I'm experiencing you as image and sensation in my body, in my consciousness. I experience my own body like that. I experience you like that. Sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts are occurrences in consciousness of consciousness. So even though I see this as mine and your body as different than mine, actually what I'm experiencing as you and what I'm experiencing as my body are just sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. And the whole universe is nothing other than that. Consciousness experiencing itself as the subject and the object, but both the subject, the individual subject, and the individual object are movements of consciousness within consciousness. Okay, so that's why the great sayings of the great rishis, they say, I'm not in the world is in me. I'm not in the body is in me. I'm not in the mind is in me. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, when he's talking to Arjuna, he says, Prakritim swam vashtbhai vishrajami puna puna. Curving back within myself, I create again and again. It's the mechanics of how we create our experience of the body, we create our experience of the mind, and we create our experience of the world. In the Vedanta, there are what are called the 5 kleshas. The klesha is a Sanskrit word, which means the cause of suffering. So the 5 kleshas are, number 1, not knowing who you are. Number 2, the addiction and the craving for permanence in a world that is inherently impermanent. Number 3 is the fear of impermanence. Number 4 is identifying with your self-image instead of yourself. What Eckhart was saying, all the labels. So all the labels, all the definitions, all the evaluations, all the judgments, all the ideas, all the concepts that have come from conditioning, parents, children, your parents, your siblings, your culture, religion, history, economic conditions, all these things are collected and then identified with, and that becomes the self-image, the conditioned mind. So that's the 4th klesha. And the 5th klesha is the fear of death. is the fear of the unknown. It's the fear that actually is the basis of all religion, at least institutionalized religion, capitalizes on the fear of death. And in a way, all fear is the fear of death in disguise. Because what is the fear of death? It's, as I said, the fear of the unknown, but it's also the fear of, I'm trying to hold on to something that's not going to be there in the next moment. Okay? And the great teaching of the Vedanta is that all these 5 causes of suffering are contained in the first cause. And that is not knowing you, who you are. Confusing yourself with a socially induced hallucination that actually doesn't exist. And the key, therefore, is who am I? I mean, Sri Ramana Maharshi spent 20 years in silence, and if people asked him a question, no matter what the question was, he would say, who's asking the question? And sometimes he would say, not only who's asking the question, but who's the who that is asking the question. And you know, when you say, who am I, then you could also ask yourself, who's asking, who am I?
Hat dir dieses Video gefallen? Dann abonniere jetzt unbedingt diesen Kanal. Denn schon bald findest du hier den nächsten Beitrag von einem deiner Top-Mentoren.